16 miles in circumference underneath Geneva. We accelerate protons, which are these simple particles, to 99.999999% the speed of light.
The earth-shattering feeling you just experienced is what some might call the Mandela effect.
At the European Nuclear Research Center, terrifying experiments could change the fabric of reality happening right now. Adam Barker from Tech Bubble warns that the Large Hadron Collider isn't just exploring physics. It's spiraling into nightmare-like areas like forbidden portals or Jacob's hellish ladder. This mix of advanced science and unimaginable possibilities suggests CERN might be about to unlock doors to frightening new worlds. Are we about to face realms that should stay hidden? Tune in to investigate CERN's recent activity that could potentially unleash hell on Earth. Unlocking the universe's hidden dangers. The story tells that Jacob, Abraham's grandson, after dreaming of a ladder reaching up to heaven, woke up feeling deeply moved by a divine presence. He described the place of his dream as nothing less than a sacred gateway to heaven. Similarly, many experts imply that the European Nuclear Research Center's experiments might be about more than just scientific inquiry. They could be an attempt to forge a literal gateway to other dimensions. This idea of angels as interdimensional beings in the biblical story suggests a parallel to what the center might be trying to achieve. Opening a door not just to observe other realms, but potentially to interact with them. The center's ambitions could well be pushing the limits of conventional scientific pursuits into the territory of altering the very structure of reality. It's as if they are reaching into the unknown, potentially unlocking capabilities that could change our understanding of the universe. These experiments could offer groundbreaking insights into the cosmos or lead us into scenarios we are hardly prepared for. The thought of manipulating such fundamental aspects of our universe carries both excitement and significant risks, hinting at the profound implications these scientific adventures could have on our perception of existence itself. This blend of advanced science and the exploration of theoretical possibilities blurs the line between modern physics and the kind of speculative scenarios usually found in speculative fiction. At the European Nuclear Research Center, Sergio Bertolucci, the director responsible for research and scientific computing, was once interviewed by The Register, a science and technology journal based in London and New York. He was asked about the possibility of the center discovering or creating doorways to other dimensions. His response was straightforward, suggesting that something could emerge from these experiments, or they might intentionally send something through these gateways. His comment resonates with themes often found in biblical texts, which talk about future times when doorways to other realms will open and beings from beyond will enter our world. If these biblical passages are taken at face value rather than as symbolic or poetic, they propose a scenario that aligns closely with the type of research the European Nuclear Research Center is involved in. Yet, the center insists its work is purely scientific, aimed at exploring the fundamentals of the universe, such as space-time, matter, and the origins of planets, from a scientific perspective that does not involve any religious or mystical beliefs. However, the symbolism they choose to associate with their research raises questions. For example, prominently displayed between two of their buildings is a statue of Shiva, a major Hindu deity known as the Destroyer. This choice of symbol, which stands out at the facility, might seem out of place at a scientific institution, where one might expect to see artwork representing particles or the Big Bang. This statue of Shiva could be interpreted as a symbol of transformation or destruction, reflecting the potentially revolutionary impact of their scientific discoveries. However, one could argue that if the European Nuclear Research Center truly aimed to celebrate scientific achievements, wouldn't it make more sense to display art directly related to their research? The decision to place a figure known for destruction among their symbols of creation and discovery introduces a level of irony, or perhaps a hint of drama, to their scientific environment. The mix of deep religious symbolism, with advanced scientific research at the European Nuclear Research Center, perhaps points to a deeper, more intricate narrative than the center might officially acknowledge. It sparks speculation and potentially criticism from observers who notice a mismatch between the center's declared mission of empirical science and the powerful religious imagery they display. This blend of the symbolic and the scientific might be less about the science itself and more about the human intrigue with the unknown and the profound, drawing a line where science meets philosophy and human curiosity. In 2004, the government of India, having established long-standing relations with the leaders of the European Nuclear Research Center, presented them with a bronze statue of Shiva as Nataraja, the Lord of Dance. This statue is not just a simple piece of art. It portrays Shiva performing the Rudra Tandava, a dance linked to the processes of world creation and destruction. This representation serves to emphasize Shiva's pivotal role in the endless cycle of beginning and end, and also his intimidating presence as he induces ruin to an exhausted world. Accompanying this impressive statue, a plaque offers insights into its importance. It draws a connection between the ancient Indian craftsmen who depicted Shiva's cosmic dance centuries ago and the modern physicists who study cosmic patterns and fundamental forces today. This suggests a shared thread between old-world mythology and the advanced scientific exploration of today, proposing that the symbolic dance of Shiva resembles the dynamic movements that modern science observes in the universe. However, placing a figure associated with destruction inside a scientific facility that aims to decode the universe's basic elements is thought-provoking. It invites one to wonder if this is simply an acknowledgement of cultural history, or if it signifies a deeper, perhaps unspoken belief in the power of destruction and renewal as essential forces. The combination of art and science here is not only decorative, but also serves as a philosophical statement, blending ideas of endings and new beginnings at a place dedicated to pushing the boundaries of what we understand about the cosmos. The philosophical implications of displaying a symbol of destruction in a hub of scientific research are intriguing. This may prompt one to consider whether this symbolizes a mere tribute to cultural heritage, or if it suggests a deeper, possibly unacknowledged conviction in the necessary cycle of destruction and rebirth. This union of artistic representation and scientific endeavor acts not just as a decor, but as an ideological declaration that interlaces concepts of destruction and creation in a facility committed to expanding the frontiers of human knowledge. With Shiva's symbolism and scientific research intertwined, the European Nuclear Research Center could be mixing ancient beliefs with modern science. The creation and destruction at the lab. This setting could lead observers to question the rationale behind associating a research facility with a figure symbolizing the end as much as the beginning. Is this an overt acknowledgement of the need for periodic upheaval in the quest for advancement and understanding, or a subtle acknowledgement of the universe's inherently chaotic nature? Placing such a powerful symbol within a center of scientific exploration suggests that even in the domain of methodical and empirical research, there is acknowledgement of the cyclic forces of destruction that pave the way for new creation. This is depicted in Shiva's cosmic dance. Such a gesture by the Indian government to a European scientific institution might also indicate a bridging of cultural and scientific narratives. This shows a respect for the depth and breadth of Indian philosophical and religious traditions within a modern scientific context. It hints at the universal themes of transformation and cyclical change that resonate across different cultures and fields of study, making a profound statement about the interconnectedness of human understanding, be it through art, mythology, or science. By integrating this statue into their space, the European Nuclear Research Center may be embracing a broader perspective on the universe's nature, one that respects and incorporates ancient insights into the modern scientific paradigm. This approach not only enriches the cultural landscape of the institution, but also prompts a deeper reflection among the scientific community and visitors alike on the interconnectedness of destruction and creation as fundamental aspects of both the physical and metaphysical realms. The powerful imagery of Shiva, placed strategically at a cutting-edge research facility, invites reflection on the nature of creation and destruction, suggesting that these themes are not only central to Hindu mythology, but are also relevant to the experimental and theoretical work being conducted in the realms of particle physics and cosmology. Not only central to Hindu mythology, but are also relevant to the experimental and theoretical work being conducted in the realms of particle physics and cosmology. The statue stands as a testament to the notion that every act of creation is simultaneously an act of destruction, echoing the complex interplay of elements that physicists attempt to unravel at the European Nuclear Research Center. This makes the statue a profound symbol, blending the old with the new and the artistic with the scientific, in a dialogue about the very essence of existence and transformation. If you're the type to suspect hidden motives in almost everything, you'd probably find the location of the European Nuclear Research Center quite compelling. Situated in Saint-Genis-Pouilly in France, this isn't just any ordinary location. It was once known as Alim during the Roman era, a place that hosted a temple dedicated to Apollon, a deity associated with destruction, similar to Shiva and Horus. What adds another layer to this is Apollon's mention in the biblical book of Revelation as the angel of the abyss, linking a site rich in ancient and apocalyptic associations with a facility engaged in cutting-edge scientific research can make one stop and think about the possible implications of such a historical and mythical convergence. Close by is another grand structure, the Gothard Base Tunnel, recognized as the world's longest and deepest rail tunnel. Positioned beneath the St. Gothard Pass, an essential route that connects the northern and southern regions of Switzerland, the tunnel might seem unrelated to the European Nuclear Research Center at first glance. However, the intrigue grows when you consider the opening ceremony of the tunnel, which was broadcast worldwide on June 1, 2016. The event featured performances that many viewed as filled with occult symbolism, including what some described as demonic dances. The ceremony included an interfaith blessing conducted near a statue of Saint Barbara, who is venerated as the patron saint of miners. The mix of religious symbols with dramatic and somewhat unsettling performances could suggest there's more to these projects than meets the eye. Opting to infuse a purely engineering achievement with such a richly symbolic and theatrical ceremony could imply a layer of meaning or intent that extends beyond mere technical feats. Such events and their rich tapestries of symbolism encourage a deeper examination of not only what is presented, but also the potential currents that run beneath the surface. The juxtaposition of modern scientific endeavors at the European Nuclear Research Center with the mythologically charged site of the ancient Apollon's temple presents a fascinating clash. One might wonder if this is simply a coincidence, or if there's a deliberate weaving of historical and mythological elements into the narrative fabric of these scientific and engineering landmarks. This blending could be seen as either a profound acknowledgement of the interconnectedness of human efforts across ages or as a cynically calculated strategy to cloak ambitious contemporary projects in the revered narratives of ancient legends. It is possible to endow them with a grandeur and significance designed to capture global attention and admiration. Moreover, the decision to layer such symbolism, particularly in a place that probes into the very core of existence, might suggest a recognition of the eternal interplay between creation and destruction, a theme resonant through human history. Whether these elements are mere artistic embellishments or indicative of deeper, perhaps hidden motivations, they certainly provide ample material for the critically minded observer to question the layers of meaning behind what is publicly displayed in these grand scientific and technological endeavors. The old Temple of Apollon and the mystical Gothard Tunnel ceremony suggest the European Nuclear Research Center blends ancient stories with modern science. The myth at the Gothard Base Tunnel. Exploring these themes further The selection of such a charged setting for a center that explores fundamental particles and forces of the universe is intriguing. Is this location choice a mere nod to cultural heritage? Or does it reflect a deeper philosophical or even spiritual alignment with themes of apocalypse and renewal? The use of symbols associated with ancient deities and apocalyptic prophecies in the context of a high-tech scientific setting can be seen as a bold statement on the continuity and transformation of human thought, bridging the gap between past mythologies and contemporary scientific inquiry. These considerations open up a field of speculation and critical thought about how modern institutions utilize ancient symbols and stories to frame and perhaps enhance their scientific narratives. The incorporation of such profound and sometimes dark symbolism into modern scientific ceremonies could be interpreted as an attempt to resonate with deeper human experiences and concerns, connecting the exploration of the physical world with timeless questions about the universes and our own origins and destinies. Bringing these elements together, a research center on a site dedicated to an ancient destroyer, and a tunnel inaugurated with rituals that evoke deep and dark symbolism. One can't help but wonder about the underlying themes linking these modern scientific and engineering feats with old myths and dark legends. It appears as if these high-tech projects are not just about advancing science or improving infrastructure, but also about making statements or connections that reach back through the annals of history. This mix of advanced scientific research with ancient mythology at such a public level invites speculation about whether there's a broader narrative or symbolism at play, intentionally woven into the fabric of these projects. The European Nuclear Research Center, positioned on historically significant land, and the Gothard Base Tunnel, opened with mystique-laden ceremonies, both suggest a fascinating overlap of the old world with the new, where every scientific and technological step forward is perhaps shadowed by echoes from the past, resonating with themes of creation, destruction, and transformation. After the religious ceremony near the statue of St. Barbara, the gathered media and dignitaries turned their attention to honor the 9 miners who tragically died during the construction of the tunnel. However, the scene at Bodo's southern entrance was far from the expected solemn tribute. It unfolded into a strange parade featuring miners, erotic dancers, zombies, and figures they called fallen angels, all marching to the eerie music of someone known as the Shepherd. His calls brought forth an even stranger figure, the Goatman. This character, brought to life by a young, lively dancer, wore a costume that combined a goat's head and fur with the sophisticated look of a formal tuxedo. This peculiar Goatman echoed the unsettling figure of Krampus from German folklore, who, unlike the benevolent Saint Nicholas, threatened to snatch misbehaving children in the dead of winter. Maurice Bruce's research delves into this figure's origins, suggesting a mixture of old pagan customs and Christian symbolism. Krampus, with his goat-like features and sinister demeanor, embodies an ancient deity, complete with symbols like birch branches used in old rituals for their symbolic meanings of growth and punishment. Bruce points out that these branches might not only represent growth, but could also be tools in the initiation ceremonies of ancient witch groups, where they were used for whipping as a part of a symbolic death ritual. The chains that Krampus carries, once perhaps used in pagan ceremonies to signify bondage and initiation, might have been adapted by Christians as a symbol of controlling evil forces. The celebrations marking the entrance to Bodo were visually striking, yet they carried a depth of historical significance that hinted at a mix of joy and caution. These events acted as a reminder of how traditions morph over time, pulling together bits and pieces from different times and belief systems into a display that might be as confusing as it is entertaining. The attendees were left to ponder the intricate mesh of history that shapes our modern festivities, thinking about how old rituals and symbolic figures find their way into today's cultural scenes, mixing elements of fear with the celebrations. This interaction between the historical and the current in depicting figures like the Goatman underscores the ongoing negotiations between ancient beliefs and their place in today's world, showing how complex and often tangled our cultural heritage can be. The Goatman, dressed in a neat suit but with a goat's face and a tongue sticking out, shows a mix of fancy dress and old symbols. This figure merges modern fashion with ancient imagery, reflecting a common theme found in old myths across various cultures, including Mayan, Hindu, Babylonian. The Goatman, dressed in a neat suit but with a goat's face and a tongue sticking out, shows a mix of fancy dress and old symbols. This figure merges modern fashion with ancient imagery, reflecting a common theme found in old myths across various cultures, including Mayan, Hindu, Babylonian, Egyptian, and Greek. This theme is also seen in the British emblem, which features a lion and a unicorn with their tongues sticking out, a gesture that often signifies untamed, wild forces, potentially tied to ancient fertility rituals or more obscure, darker rites. Expanding on this, the Goatman at Bodo's festivities is not just a visual curiosity, but also invites viewers to critique how modern societies repackage mythological and historical symbols. His outfit, which combines the polished look of a tuxedo with the wild, almost savage features of a goat, forces onlookers to confront the juxtaposition of civilized norms with our more primal instincts. It questions the limits of tradition and modernity, showcasing how they can exist together, but also highlighting the inherent contradictions in trying to blend the two seamlessly. Combining old symbols with new science at the Gothard tunnels opening hints at a deeper link that goes beyond just technology. The time capsule of hell. The depiction of such a figure in a current festival setting prompts a reconsideration of the roles these mythical figures occupy in our collective consciousness. Are they simply relics of ancient superstitions, or do they serve a deeper need to connect with our more untamed, instinctual sides? The ambiguity of the Goatman, straddling the divide between animal and human, past symbol and modern spectacle, challenges observers to think about what these figures represent in today's cultural landscape. More broadly, the use of ancient symbols in contemporary celebrations can be seen as a clever, if somewhat cynical, tactic by cultural organizers to captivate a varied audience. By embedding complex historical and mythological references within the appealing format of a festival, not only do they provide entertainment, but they also subtly educate the public about their cultural heritage. However, one might question whether this fusion dilutes the original meanings of these symbols, turning them into mere attractions for entertainment rather than respected elements of a rich cultural fabric. This interaction between the past and the present, the revered and the commonplace, reflects a wider cultural negotiation. The past is not just preserved, but actively engaged with, reshaped, and sometimes even commercialized to maintain relevance in a swiftly evolving world. The Goatman, as a figure at Bodo's celebrations, embodies this dynamic, standing as a symbol of the layered, evolving, and sometimes commercially exploited nature of our cultural heritage today. Maurice Bruce once linked this image to the horned god, an archetype of wilderness and unchecked vigor, which strangely connects to the modern scientific pursuits at the European Nuclear Research Center. The peculiar juxtaposition of a mythical creature associated with nature and fertility rites at a high-tech scientific facility, particularly during the Gothard-based tunnel's opening, suggests more than just a cultural celebration. It insinuates a deeper, perhaps intentional invocation of old symbols of power and transformation right in the heart of contemporary technological advances. Researchers like Josh Peck and I have explored the deeper implications behind massive engineering projects like tunnels and particle colliders. Rather than mere scientific or transportation advancements, we argue that these might be part of a broader, more esoteric agenda. The grand opening of the Gothard-based tunnel, with its vivid portrayals of ancient deities and rituals, seems to reinforce this perspective, suggesting a dual purpose, not only to connect 2 points geographically, but to bridge the earthly with the otherworldly. The tunnel's design itself, featuring twin entry points that lead in opposite directions, symbolically mirrors the cyclical pattern of death and rebirth associated with the Green Man, a deity from folklore who dies in winter and is reborn in spring. This ceremonial display at the tunnel's inauguration could be seen as a modern enactment of this age-old cycle, repurposed to signify a rebirth of society under new, potentially unsettling norms. This event at Gothard wasn't just about celebrating a new tunnel. It was an elaborate display loaded with symbolism, resonating with ancient narratives of transformation and renewal, cleverly wrapped in the guise of a public celebration. It hinted at opening doors not just through mountains, but perhaps, metaphorically, to other realms as well, aligning technological feats with mystical aspirations. The ceremony seemed to proclaim the dawn of a new era, marked by the blending of old-world symbols with new-world technology, potentially paving the way for a future that redefines traditional values and structures, aiming perhaps to establish a new cultural paradigm that reverses many values held dear in Western civilization. The opening ceremony of the Gothard Base Tunnel featured a spectacle that seemed more like a scene from ancient myth than a modern engineering celebration. This event included representations of mythical figures such as the Triple Goddess and the Horned God, alongside enactments of human sacrifice and echoes of old pagan rituals, wrapped up in a performance that could still be viewed on platforms like YouTube. This choice of symbolism, far from being a simple artistic expression, hints at a deeper connection to age-old traditions and beliefs. The performers, dressed as miners, climbed an artificial rock structure and pretended to dig into the earth, uncovering what was depicted as a large machine made of intertwining human arms. This imagery strongly resembled the machinery at the European Nuclear Research Center, specifically the Large Hadron Collider, known for its complex and massive circular design intended to smash particles at high speeds. Following this symbolic unearthing, the performers shed their work gear and engaged in a choreographed battle dance using staves, evoking images of ancient warfare. This intense dance was meant to awaken a giant, a metaphor for ancient deities associated with the natural cycles of life and death. The link between the ritualistic elements of the Gothard ceremony and the operations at the European Nuclear Research Center is more than just thematic. It suggests a fusion of scientific endeavor with mystical practices. The portrayal of the Horned God, a deity known in various cultures for his connections to fertility and the wild, alongside Melkart, a god who dies in winter and is reborn in spring, aligns closely with the seasonal death and rebirth themes prevalent in many mythologies. Melkart's narrative is particularly resonant with the theme of resurrection, often celebrated in ancient times and mirrored in the seasonal cycles of nature. This intersection of modern scientific exploration and ancient ritual at the tunnel's opening ceremony is suggestive of a deeper, possibly intentional blurring of the lines between the advancement of technology and the revival of archaic spiritual practices. By invoking these powerful symbols of regeneration and cyclicality, the ceremony seems to parallel the scientific goals of the Large Hadron Collider, which probes the fundamental questions of the universe by recreating conditions similar to those just after the Big Bang, essentially observing the birth of particles. Myths at the European Nuclear Research Center, from Apollo to Abaddon, suggest our search for knowledge revisits ancient stories of gods and cosmic battles. The ancient stories that influence modern science. Moreover, the cultural and historical references embedded in the ceremony reach back to ancient civilizations that once occupied the European landscape. Figures like Nimrod, Apollo, and Abaddon, known in different contexts for their godlike powers and sometimes destructive capacities. They are linked through folklore and religious texts to the same regions influenced by the Greek and Roman empires, and even to Celtic traditions in France with gods like Atepodomus. These connections are not merely coincidental. but are carefully woven into the fabric of the ceremony, creating a narrative that ties the cutting-edge scientific work at the European Nuclear Research Center to a much broader and older cultural heritage. This elaborate display during the Gothard tunnel inauguration did more than just mark the completion of a major infrastructure project. It served as a dramatic reenactment of ancient myths and rituals, suggesting that modern humanity's quest to penetrate the questions of the physical world might also involve an element of reconnecting with its mystical past. The fusion of these ancient symbols with modern scientific imagery in the ceremony was likely intended to provoke reflection on the part of the viewers, challenging them to see beyond the surface of technological achievement to the philosophical and perhaps spiritual inquiries such exploration might entail. The ceremony at Gothard was a theatrical, highly choreographed reminder of the human fascination with the unknown, both in the scientific sense and in the metaphysical or spiritual realms. It suggests that our efforts to explore and understand the physical universe are paralleled by an ongoing dialogue with our cultural and spiritual histories, where figures like the horned god and Melkart symbolize not just myths of old, but are emblematic of the perpetual human quest to explore, understand, and perhaps control the forces of nature and existence itself. In the tangled web of myth and modern science, Apollo Atepodomus stands out as a figure combining ancient symbolism with contemporary locations. Known as the Great Horseman from Celtic lore, where horses were revered as symbols of the sun's vitality, Apollo Atepodomus's connection to France, a key location for part of the Large Hadron Collider at the European Nuclear Research Center, paints an intriguing picture. This melding of a cultural symbol from the past with a current scientific facility might seem coincidental, but it invites deeper reflection when placed alongside apocalyptic narratives from the Book of Revelation. The thought that the European Nuclear Research Center could be involved in something as dramatic as opening a bottomless pit, as described in Revelation, might sound extreme. However, exploring this idea further, one could argue that the center's work, by piercing into the very fabric of reality, might not be too far from the metaphorical depiction of uncovering hidden or forbidden knowledge. Could this quest to understand the universe's most fundamental elements echo the biblical opening of realms, best left untouched? The positioning of the European Nuclear Research Center in a region steeped in mythology and history adds layers of narrative depth. The region's past, filled with worship of figures like Apollo and Abaddon, provides a rich backdrop against which the center's scientific endeavors unfold. These mythological figures, once seen as gods or demons with control over life and death, find their narratives revived in the context of modern scientific quests that challenge the very limits of human knowledge and capability. As science progresses, especially in fields as advanced and as boundary-pushing as particle physics, it resurrects and repurposes these ancient narratives into contemporary settings. This is not merely a continuation of cultural traditions, but a reimagining of them in a way that reflects current understandings and anxieties about the world and our place within it. This duality of exploration, both scientific and mythical, suggests a modern-day enactment of the age-old human endeavor to grasp the ineffable, to reach beyond the immediate and tangible into realms of greater power. The imagery used in Revelation, with its dramatic and ominous tones, serves as a poignant reminder of the potential consequences of such endeavors. It compels us to consider whether, in our pursuit of knowledge, we might inadvertently trigger events or discoveries that parallel those forewarned in ancient prophecies. Thus, the activities at the European Nuclear Research Center, set against this mythological and apocalyptic backdrop, invite us to reflect on the broader implications of our scientific ambitions. In this way, the intersection of Apollo Atepodomus's symbolism with the aims of modern particle physics not only bridges eras, but also blurs the lines between scientific discovery and mythic destiny. Is the European Nuclear Research Center really just about science? Or are they opening gates to other dimensions? What do you think? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.